Hello and welcome to ITIM number 15. I'm your host Tim Sarley, and today we're here at the Shepparton Heritage Centre in Wellstead Street opposite the police station with Geoff Allemand. How are you, Geoff?
Hi Tim.
Thanks for joining today.
My pleasure.
So I wanted to interview Geoff because a couple of things. He runs the Heritage Centre in Shepparton here, and Shepparton's got a lot of great history that a lot of us don't know about, and so I wanted to cover a few things on that. But also Geoff's started up a little, or tried a few business ideas in his time around Shepparton, and got a lot very community minded and tries to generate business for the community, even developing his own money. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but before we get to that, Geoff, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks Tim. Yeah, I'm a Maryborough boy, Maryborough, Victoria, but I shifted to Shepparton in 1980 as a school teacher. So I started teaching here in primary school. The school was Boucher Street Primary School, and over the years I've taught in a variety of Shepparton schools in the primary area, but I was always a little bit restless. So I always had ideas sort of crackling away, and ended up leaving teaching for probably my biggest project at the time.
Yep. What was that?
That was an idea for a children's playground, and I started Kidstown in between Shepparton and Mooroopna as a community project. And the idea was to have $1 million children's playground as big as the MCG.
Yes.
And we're after sponsors and so on. So formed a committee, and we managed to get some sponsorship, and ended up building what I think is probably one of the best children's playgrounds in Australia.
Yes.
And I was manager for 7 years. Then had a massive heart attack, and life all changed, and started to do some other things after that.
Yeah, right. Okay. So I can contest with the Kidstown. It's fantastic. It's having kids there often. So that's still running, obviously. And what happened after that? You said obviously the heart attack slowed things down a bit. What did you do after that?
Yeah, I lost a lot of confidence. It took a while to pick up the pieces, but I started having some ideas of other things, and worked with a friend of mine to come up with a petrol discount scheme that supported the local petrol stations. Coles and the other supermarkets had their own 4 cents off schemes, so I wanted to start one for locals, and I called it Scratch Me Back, and it was a scratchy on the back of a special card, and that gave you either 4 cents, 8 cents or 10 cents discount off your fuel, supporting local petrol station. And then I started doing that with some other petrol stations around the district, and that went okay for a time, but the big guys, the supermarkets, they ended up beating us.
Yeah, I do remember those cards, and you got them from local. When you spent money locally, the local shops gave you a Scratch Me Back card back to then spend your money back at the local petrol stations.
Yeah,
so it's fantastic.
Yeah, people love getting a discount off their fuel. They didn't worry too much about getting discount off their meat or their fruit. But if they could cash it in and get discounted fuel, it worked. So that was good for a time. I learnt a lot. So after a while, I did a few other local things. I did local shopping sprees to support some of the local shops, and then I did a little bit of work with a primary school, helping them collect the history from their grandparents, and that got me interested in local history. I started a Facebook page called Lost Shepparton.
So we're going to touch on that a little bit, but Geoff started up the Lost Shepparton and Lost Mooroopna pages, and is there any other lost?
Most of the towns around this area, Kyabram, Echuca, I started all of those as lost Facebook pages, and then over time I found a local person to manage the page. Lost Shepparton just started to take off, and that's taken up most of my time.
Yeah, great. Okay, excellent. And now you're here at the museum. Tell us a bit about that. I mean, you've taken me through the centre today, which has been fantastic, and I've learned a lot. Seen some photos of some old phones, which I'm pretty keen to see. But what's your role here now? What are you doing here?
Yeah, well, I'm the manager of the Heritage Centre, which includes the museum and also this space, which is my Lost Shepparton shop. But I didn't start here though, Tim. It was an interesting journey. It's amazing how these days you can start a business from just an idea.
Yes.
And I wondered whether I could, and I saw that there was a guy in Perth, started Lost Perth. Now he was producing books and souvenirs around the history of Perth, and I thought, well, I might be able to start something for Shepparton.
Yep.
So after I got about 1,000 fans on my Facebook page, I figured I need more photos. I was running out of old photos of Shepparton. The Heritage Centre here didn't understand Facebook, they didn't understand the internet, so they weren't really interested in working with me or helping me.
Yes.
So I thought, well, I might set myself up in a cafe one day a week with my scanner and my computer, and invite my fans to come in with their photos, and I'd scan their photos and grow it that way. Well, I set up at the cafe at Harris Scarf.
Yes.
It's a local cafe with history around it,
Yep.
which was really good. So anyway, it was going really well. I was getting too much content to scan that I thought if I had a shop and set it up as a Lost Shepparton shop, maybe I can collect the history that way.
Yes.
So at that time there was a thing going on in Shepparton where there were a lot of empty shops, and it was called Renew Shepparton, and they were looking for people with business ideas to go into a shop, not pay any rent, and then grow your idea, and if you start to make some money, then the landlord might like to put you on a special rent. So I was one of the first to start that with Lost Shepparton, and it was going really well, and then the landlord got a tenant for the shop, so I had to move. I ended up going into Corio Street opposite SPC Factory Sales. I was there for about 6 months, then the landlord got a full paying tenant. I had to move again, and then the Heritage Centre decided what I was doing was quite amazing, and they invited me to set up here in their meeting room and to work with the Heritage Centre to collect our history and to grow it with them. So I manage my shop here, but I also manage the museum for school groups to come through, which I really like, being an ex-school teacher. And I've been doing that now for about 3 years.
That's great.
And really enjoying being in this location and being right amongst all the history of Shepparton and district.
And it looks like a little small cottage from the front, but it actually goes back quite a long way, and there's a lot of history that, and especially there's some stuff in there that I didn't realise that you had. So for sure, definitely if you get a chance to pop in, come and have a look through, because it's got some great history in there, and hopefully you'll see, we'll take a little bit of video later on, and we'll put some photos and videos through of what the museum did, or has got at the moment. Yeah, for sure. Now you come up with this Shepparton Money, 1 ducat, 2 ducat, 10 ducats.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about how that works. And that's still active now, yeah?
It's still active, but it's slowed right down. People like to spend using credit cards, and paying with cash is a bit tricky. But there's something special about having local money. Back when I was managing Kidstown, I developed Kidstown dollars, and got some supporters for that, and people used to come to the playground. They'd put a gold coin in this machine we had from Queensland, and it would spit out some Kidstown money, and then they could spend that money in the shop. So it just stayed at Kidstown, and I always thought there must be some places around the world that have money that's local, so that money that you get can only be spent locally. And I found many cities around the world that developed their own currency, and it was legal. You could actually print your own money as long as it wasn't legal tender. It was local money, it could be done. So I studied all of those back in the Kidstown days, but when I left Kidstown, the idea never really left me. And when I was setting up here, I thought a good way of promoting our heritage would be develop some local currency that had actual photos of local historic items on it. And we called them ducats. Ducats is a very famous Shepparton name.
It is, yes.
Now lost after 90 years, which is a real shame. But I taught Ray Ducat's children, and I knew Ray personally, and I approached him about whether his family would be interested in having money, Shepparton's own money, named after his family. And he was incredibly proud and honoured, and over time we developed this currency, and we launched it in the mail. And it's been operating now for about 2 years, and I modelled it on how other cities around the world use it. And how it starts is that people who want to get some ducats come into this shop. They hand over, say, $10.
Yep.
And in return they get 11 ducats. That's like $11.
Yep.
But that 11 ducats can be spent at any of the participating shops. And we started with about 20. And people then spend them with the shops. Then the shops have to redeem them somehow.
Yep.
There's two options. The best way is that they spend their ducats with other shops that use ducats. Or they can redeem them back with the bank, you should say, back here.
Yep.
But they get 90% of the value, so that 10% then comes off if they cash them in.
Yeah. Right.
And most businesses are happy to do that if they have too much. They spend as much of the ducats as they can in the group and keep it local. And they're also popular as souvenirs. People come here, buy them, and take them away. So that ends up being profit for the Ducats Incorporation. We've set it up as an incorporated group, so no one's making money from it. But it's in a little bit of a recess at the moment, but I'd love to get it going again. And if we had some really interested businesses, I'm sure we could operate this in a successful way. It's really unique. We're the only ones in Australia that have ever tried this.
You said there's a place around the world that the mayor actually takes his money, gets his fee in the local currency.
That's right. In England, there's a little town called, it escapes me at the moment, but anyway, they turn over about £1 million of the pounds. I think it was Totnes, the Totnes pound, and even the mayor accepts his paycheck in the local pounds that he then spends locally. They even have a power company who accepts them, and they have it so that it's on a mobile app as well. But we've just got the physical currency, but it's got a lot of potential, but I'd like to find a way to keep it going.
Right, okay, we'll look into that for you. Now, what's next for the Heritage Centre? What's coming up next?
Well, we've got big plans. As you said at the start, when people look at the building here opposite the police station, it just looks like a little cottage and a little museum. People don't realise that there's 4 big galleries and 2 small rooms. We have about 5,000 items on show, but we have trouble getting people in. And people might remember how back in 1973 we had our post office demolished in the main street. You can see behind me here our little shrine for the post office. An amazing heritage building, but when they were demolishing it, it was going to be rebuilt. That was the idea, but it never happened. They had an auction, sold off all the materials, all the furniture, all the bricks, but the thought was, wouldn't it be good to have it rebuilt? Well, we've got an idea here where we'll demolish or move this little cottage. It's only a 20-year-old building, and we want to rebuild the post office on this site as a facade, a bit like the butter factory. So just have the facade of the post office, but rebuild the clock tower, have a working clock, and then behind the facade have new galleries, new buildings to give us a bit more space for our collection. And we think...
Display all this collection you've got here.
Yes, and we've got a lot in storage, and we've got a lot that we just can't put on show because we just don't have the space. But if people then driving past see this amazing post office like building, I think would then want to come in and check out the museum. And we'd like to have, as part of that, is the shop would resemble a bit like the old post office, to have some of the furniture, the big counter and so on, maybe have some working old telephones, because most people might not know that the old post office was the post office exchange. And a telephone exchange in the early years. So that's a really bold project. I've done a presentation to the councillors. They're quite interested, but we have to tick quite a few boxes to make it open. So just behind me, we've got the 1873 plans, all the drawings of how the post office was built. So it would be an amazing project with building companies and tradies, I think, would like to support it. So we're hoping to launch the project this year.
Okay, great.
And then look at probably be a multi-million-dollar project. But I think it would look really good having an old building like the old post office here, and then just up the road we've got the brand new courthouse.
It'll be amazing.
So that's pretty adventurous project.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
It comes through. So, now just one last question. Is there something you want to ask the audience?
Yes, I have a question for the business people out there who perhaps have buildings and shops. Do you know the history of that site? Do you know what businesses were there before you? We do get requests quite often from local businesses to do some research on the history of what was on that site, and sometimes we're able to find old photos. So we might be able to help some business people with that. Does help you get interested in history when you've got a reason to to research it.
Who was there?
And I've actually started up a business register that I've been keeping since I've been here doing this for 2 years, and I have about 3,000 businesses listed on my computer that were in various locations in Shepparton. I go through old telephone directories, old newspapers looking for business names, and I put down the information I have, where they were hopefully, and who owned them, and what sort of business it was. So I have quite a lot of the locations actually started.
Right.
So that may interest some of your viewers.
Yeah. Well, if you're a business out there and want to know the history of your building that you're in, then put a comment below, leave it below, and reach out to Geoff if you want to find out that information. Thanks for watching. As always, if you can share across all platforms, Facebook, onto YouTube and so on, but share it and like it, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.